Hello everyone, I hope that you all enjoyed your holiday vacation, and it's currently New Year's Eve, and I certainly didn't expect to be making a video today, but we kind of had a surprising announcement from Elizabeth Warren. She announced that she will be running for president in 2020, or excuse me, she announced that she is creating an exploratory committee to decide whether or not she will or won't be running for president. I really hate these dances that all candidates do with the exploratory committee. Just come out and say that you will or won't run. Now, generally speaking, the only reason why candidates do this and they announce that they're going to create this exploratory committee is so that way they can still continue to legally communicate with their super PACs. But assuming Elizabeth Warren will remain principled, she's not going to have a super PAC. So really, there's no reason for her to do this. And the one thing I was thinking as to how, she'd rationalize this instead of just directly announcing is, well, maybe she wants, the press coverage that would come with the initial announcement of the exploratory committee and then more press coverage. But I mean, you'd get more press coverage if you just directly announced. So I don't get that. But putting that aside, I'm hoping that she's not doing this so she creates a super PAC. But let me just say this. If this were December of 2014 and we were going into the 2016 election, I would be over the moon right now. But because this is 2018 and knowing what we know about Elizabeth Warren, I feel relatively ambivalent. And when I saw the news that she was announcing, I had this visceral response of excitement because I genuinely do love Elizabeth Warren. I think she's a good person. The problem with Elizabeth Warren that I have and that I think a lot of progressives have is that she doesn't have the courage needed to take on the establishment. She's not a fighter who can actually take on Donald Trump and win. And we kind of got a taste of how she'd fare against Trump with this whole DNA fiasco that it didn't go well for her at all, to put it mildly. But with that being said, she's still someone who's right on the policies, and I would absolutely support her in the event she won and became the Democratic Party nominee. I mean, I live in Oregon. It's a very deep blue state, so by default, I always just plan on voting for the Green Party candidate because this is a safe state. But Elizabeth Warren is someone who is good enough to where I would actually tick the box for a Democrat at the top of the ticket. With that being said, she's not my number one choice. You all know who it is. It's Bernie Sanders. But she is probably, a good second best for me. Although I will say that the difference between first and second choice for me is very wide because Bernie Sanders, he's someone who I really do feel would be a game changer because I kind of feel like he goes into politics with this idea that you have to get the policies no matter what, and that means that you are going to take on a lot of powerful interests, sorry. And Elizabeth Warren is someone who I can see her striking up compromises when it comes to Medicare for all. So I'm not hopeful. But with that being said, she's right on the policy issues. Some other things about Elizabeth Warren, not to be too down on her because I do like Elizabeth Warren, but again, we all wanted her to run in 2016. She was my number one choice, but she didn't step up. Bernie did. So she also decided to sit out the 2016 primaries when she could have really helped Bernie Sanders in Massachusetts. She said that the DNC rigged the 2016 primary and then days later flipped and said, maybe it wasn't rigged. Did I say rigged? So the problem with Elizabeth Warren is that I just feel like she doesn't lack courage, and she's demonstrated this multiple times. I mean, when Dakota Access Pipeline protesters were being brutalized by police, she said nothing. So I feel very frustrated with her, and I don't have the love that I used to have for Elizabeth Warren. With that being said, again, she's still right on the policy issues. The question in my mind is whether or not she's going to be courageous enough and use her bully pulpit as president to actually get things done that will save America, essentially. Because I feel like we need someone who's going to be an FDR-type politician. She could very well be that figure. But I don't know. There's an open question, which is why I'm obviously leaning towards Bernie Sanders. Not leaning, definitely going with Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is someone who I really do feel would be an FDR-type figure. And if he's not, then we're all fucked. But with that being said, she worries me a lot. Now, all of the candidates running on the Democratic side worry me because Donald Trump is going to be a fierce opponent. Now, yes, he's been tarnished throughout the course of his presidency, but with that being said, one, he still has his core base of support, and two, it's always more difficult to beat incumbent presidents. That's a fact. And lately in America, it just seems like we always give the incumbent president a second term. So that worries me. It's going to be more difficult this time than it was in 2016, no matter who's the nominee, including Bernie Sanders. Now, Elizabeth Warren, I just don't think she's going to be able to effectively take on Donald Trump. I think the problem with Elizabeth Warren is that she's more of a leader, or more of a follower, rather, than a leader. And she's going to kind of just go with the flow. So she's going to allow, unwittingly so, Donald Trump to kind of set the terms of the debate, and she's going to try to meet him there and try to combat with him, based on whatever he wants to do. When we need someone to monopolize the discussion in 2020, we need someone who's not going to play on the same level of Donald Trump and who's just going to be glued to the policies. And really, that person is Bernie Sanders. He doesn't even know what the fuck is going to happen around him. He doesn't care what Donald Trump is saying. He's just going to keep talking about Medicare for all, tuition-free public colleges and universities, a Green New Deal, and that's really what we need. If you just pretend like Donald Trump doesn't exist to an extent, I think that will behoove you. But for Elizabeth Warren, I just see her responding to every single criticism that Donald Trump lobs against her, and I could just see this, bringing her down and bogging down the whole race, and I worry about Elizabeth Warren. Again, I would support her if she were the nominee. There's no question about that in my mind. It's just a matter of, could she beat Trump? I don't know. And is she as good as Bernie? Unquestionably, no. Although for me, I'm still holding out for my girl Hillary in 2020, hoping she'll announce again. No, but seriously, on a serious note, her announcement video was underwhelming to me. I liked it, right? I liked it because she adequately addressed what the problems are in our country. I think Emma Vigeland pointed out that she talked about, or maybe it was Noah, I don't know who did, but credit to whoever said this on Twitter. They said that she was able to talk about economic issues and racial justice issues, which are important. You do have to talk about both of those things. It's one of the reasons why I think Bernie Sanders was underperforming among Black people, besides name recognition and lacking that. I think that you really have to be strong when it comes to social and racial justice issues, but she also talked about the economic issues. My problem with the video, though, is that she didn't propose solutions. And I want you to hit me over the head with policy. Just bombard me with policy to the point that I'm annoyed by all the policies you're talking about. Because I think that that's really what's going to matter. And we saw how it resonated in 2016. I keep knocking this headphone out of my ear. As you can see, I'm not prepared to film again because, I've just been playing Smash. So that's where my mind is at. And this mental break is really rejuvenating. But getting back to Elizabeth Warren, I don't know. If this were, as I've said before, if this were 2015, I'd be stoked. But I'm holding out for Bernie. Bernie, you've got to announce soon. I know that he is really hinting at announcing soon, but just rip off the Band-Aid, just announce already, Bernie, because you need to get started early so we can hit the ground running and put in the groundwork needed for you to become the nominee and eventual president. But with that being said, I would like to know what you guys all think about this. I'm assuming that most progressives are going to opt for Bernie Sanders first and then do what I'll do, support her if she wins the primary. Certainly, I'm not down for Beto. I'm not down for Biden. These are people who are they're conservative. And at this point in time, we don't need someone who's going to get in office, uphold the status quo, and implement more neoliberal policies. Joe Biden really has a very problematic record. Beto O'Rourke has a problematic voting record. So Elizabeth Warren, she doesn't have that issue. So I do think that she can get through a primary relatively unscathed and get that support from the establishment and progressive wing. Although I'm not too sure because she goes hard against Wall Street, which isn't necessarily something that's tolerated. So long story short, Elizabeth Warren is announcing her run. I just wanted to at least touch on this before we get back. I'll have my first video back officially, the first episode of 2019 on Wednesday evening, I believe, because today is Monday. And we're going to ring in the new year with 200,000 subscribers. We're about to hit a new huge milestone. We would have already hit it had YouTube not done their usual subscriber purge. But it looks like within the first week or two of 2019, we will hit 200,000 subscribers, which is absolutely astonishing to me. That's a lot of people. And, with the election season coming up, we're bound to get another huge boost. And it's going to be exhausting. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also dreading it because, I enjoy elections, but I really like just talking about policies and kind of diving into the nitty-gritty of policies. But, with that being said, I'm going to do my best to cover the 2019 election as thoroughly and exhaustively as I possibly can, because I think that this is kind of our last opportunity to save the country, because we have someone who is a transformative figure who could potentially catalyze party realignment. Because if a bunch of Blue Dog Democrats don't like Bernie Sanders and he becomes the nominee, then my hopes is that they're going to flee the party and join Republicans, and then we see a mass party realignment. I would love to see that happen. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be a fight like hell. It's going to be a fight for our lives. And tomorrow you're going to see a video that I post talking about Bernie Sanders and what we need to do to fight. But with that being said, I'm going to go celebrate New Year's Eve. I hope you guys have a wonderful New Year's yourself. Don't get too drunk. Make sure that you take care of yourself. Take a antacid tablet, because I think that's going to be important for you. That's my advice. Advice from Uncle Mike. But yeah, I'm going to get back and play Smash, because that's basically all I've been doing since Christmas, because my husband got that for me for Christmas, and that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a couple of days. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming, and 2019 is going to be pretty interesting. So yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it, I will leave you with Elizabeth Warren's ad.
In our country, if you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to take care of yourself and the people you love. That's a fundamental promise of America. A promise that should be true for everyone. Growing up in Oklahoma, that promise came through for me and my family. After my older brothers joined the military and I was still just a kid, my daddy had a heart attack and couldn't work. My mom found a minimum wage job at Sears, and that job saved our house and our family. My daddy ended up as a janitor, but he raised a daughter who got to be a public school teacher, a law professor, and a senator. We got a real opportunity to build something. Working families today face a lot tougher path than my family did. And families of color face a path that is steeper and rockier, a path made even harder by the impact of generations of discrimination. I've spent my career getting to the bottom of why America's promise works for some families, but others who work just as hard slip through the cracks into disaster. And what I've found is terrifying. These aren't cracks that families are falling into, they're traps. America's middle class is under attack. How did we get here? Billionaires and big corporations decided they wanted more of the pie, and they enlisted politicians to cut them a fatter slice. They crippled unions so no one could stop them.
We're going to turn the bull loose.
Dismantled the financial rules meant to keep us safe after the Great Depression, and cut their own taxes so they paid less than their secretaries and janitors.
It's time to write the rules for the middle class.
After Wall Street crashed our economy in 2008, I left the classroom to go to Washington and confront the broken system head on.
Elizabeth Warren, apparently not afraid to tangle with Wall Street.
Elizabeth Warren is heading into the lion's den.
Mrs. Warren goes to Washington.
She did.
We created America's first consumer watchdog to hold the big banks accountable.
A woman who has warned of another meltdown if Washington doesn't straighten up.
I never thought I'd run for office, not in a million years. But when Republican senators tried to sabotage the reforms and run me out of town, I went back to Massachusetts and ran against one of them. And I beat him.
And we are going to turn Washington back to the people.
Today, corruption is poisoning our democracy. Politicians look the other way while big insurance companies deny patients life-saving coverage, while big banks rip off consumers, and while big oil companies destroy this planet. Our government's supposed to work for all of us, but instead, it has become a tool for the wealthy and well-connected. The whole scam is propped up by an echo chamber of fear and hate, designed to distract and divide us. People who will do or say anything to hang on to power point the finger at anyone who looks, thinks, prays, or loves differently than they do.
Build that wall.
But this dark path doesn't have to be our future. We can make our democracy work for all of us. We can make our economy work for all of us. We can rebuild America's middle class, but this time we gotta build it for everyone. No matter where you live in America, and no matter where your family came from in the world, you deserve a path to opportunity. Because no matter what our differences, most of us want the same thing: to be able to work hard, play by the same set of rules, and take care of the people we love. That's the America I'm fighting for. And that's why today I'm launching an exploratory committee for president. But the outcome of this election will depend on you. In the last 2 years, millions of people have done more than they ever thought they would to protect the promise of America. And here's what we learned. If we organize together, if we fight together, if we persist together, we can win. We can, and we will.